All right, so I've taught the blind hem in classes for many, many years. And I find that I get two things that people say to me very often. The first one is, I wish I had known my machine did the blind hem stitch because I've been doing this by hand forever. And they're super excited. And the second thing that I hear is, I'm never going to use a blind hem stitch. This isn't very exciting at all. So I am not a big hemmer. I don't really enjoy hemming my pants, and if I'm gonna make curtains or something like that, I oftentimes use my serger and a rolled hem. However, I do make a lot of wall hangings, and a question that I get asked very frequently is, how do I hang my quilts? And they're not necessarily asking me how I hang my quilts, they're just asking, how do I hang a quilt? And this is what I do. I make a very simple pocket. So there's nothing fancy about this. I want this to be about an inch less than the full size of my quilt. So if my quilt is 60 inches, I would want this to be anywhere from 58 to 59 inches. And then I'm gonna want to place this, so your quilt top would be finished. I just serged around the edges, so we'll pretend that that's my binding. I don't like to put my pocket in my binding just in case I ever want to take the pocket off. If I were to put it in the binding, then I would actually need to take the binding off in order to get the pocket. So what I do is I place this about anywhere from an inch to 2 inches down from the top. So and I'm looking to make sure that I'm pretty straight. All right, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my pin. So I'm gonna grab my pin over here, and I'm gonna put a pin in the bottom, and I'm gonna pin up towards the top. So I'm putting 2 pins in. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure that when I do this, I'm leaving about, right? So about a half an inch. So I want to be able to fold my fabric over and have about a half an inch when I'm done pinning. So you can pin one direction and then go back and do the other side if you want. Doesn't really matter. But I want to make sure that it's pinned in place so that it's not moving around on me. And it doesn't have to be perfect. So I have both pieces pinned in place. And if you remember from the blind hem, when we take that little bite, we do most of the stitching on something else. So what I'm gonna do here is, you can see I'm folding back my quilt top, all right? And I'm trying to be pretty even here. All right, so my pins are pretty far back, and I am going to place this right underneath my foot. Okay, now remember when we did the blind hem earlier, I know that the machine is going to do the majority of the stitching here, and it's just going to make an ever so slight bite over to the left. So that's what I'm banking on here. And honestly, if you miss a bite or two, it's still going to be perfectly fine because you'll have the majority of the little bites holding on. So So what I have here is little itty bitty bites right into, and look, I missed a couple, but it's okay. It's not going to matter in the big picture. You can see they just take little teeny tiny bites. When I flip this around, those bites are going into the backing and the batting, but they don't come through to the front because they're just tiny little bites. So I'm going to flip this around. You can see what it looks like from the back. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Now I can take these pins out because I don't need those in any longer. So any of them that were facing that direction. And then again, I am going to flip that edge over and make that nice and neat. And I'm gonna place that right back underneath there. Make sure that my bulk is lined up with this. And I'm gonna stitch again. And you can see, did pretty good. Oh, missed a couple. That's okay. Flip that around, take my pins out. So you can see this is what it would look like on the back. And if I slid something in the back, you can see it'll slide right over. And because it doesn't really matter because I have so many different pieces in here, it's really gonna hold my quilt. So when it's hanging on my wall, those little areas where I missed ever so slightly, they aren't gonna show up at all. And you don't see any of those little bites on this side of my fabric at all. So this is what it looks like on the back. This is what my pocket looks like. And yep, I missed here. I think I missed someplace over here too, in here. But it's caught here and here, so it really isn't going to make a big difference. When I put that in there, it's going to hold it nice and secure, and it's going to hold it straight. And you're not going to have to worry about any pulls or distortions in your fabric because it's going to be taking the weight and distributing it evenly across the whole top of the quilt, which is going to make it so that you don't have to worry about any clips or rips or anything that might happen. And then, you can put this on like they make like decorative curtain rods and things like that that have the poles on the outside end, so you can slide it over something like that. Or, some people put little wood pieces in the back. But just make sure that whatever it is that you're going to use as the pole that extends inside here, just make sure that you make your pocket so that it fits over top of it. I don't do anything special to make the pocket. I literally just press each end in, seam along the bottom, and then I put the seam in the back so you can see it's buried underneath here. And then use that blind hem stitch and stitch it across. You'll have a nice display for your quilts, your wall hangings. Makes a great gift, and you won't have to worry about ruining a quilt or ripping a quilt with those little lobster claws or things like that. Hope you enjoy that little tip, and I hope this makes blind hems more useful for you. Thanks.